My name is Claire Davis. I'm 32, a pediatric nurse at Chicago Mercy, and for most of my adult life, I've lived pretty quietly. No scandals, no debt. Just me, my patients, and a small apartment in Logan Square filled with plants, secondhand bookshelves, and hand-me-down furniture. The kind of life people scroll past on Instagram. My younger sister, Madison, lived very differently. She was the golden child, married to Logan, a flashy fintech guy. They vacationed in Cabo, drank matcha lattes in matching athleisure, and just moved into a fully renovated Craftsman in Lincoln Park, 3 bedrooms. Designer kitchen, curb appeal for days. Madison always told me, "You work too hard for too little." You should take risks, Claire. Dream bigger. I didn't know her definition of risk meant using my name to take out a mortgage. It was a Tuesday mid-shift. I was checking vitals on a post-op toddler when my phone buzzed. Normally I wouldn't answer, but my neighbor had gone to the ER the night before, and I thought maybe it was the hospital. It wasn't. "Ms. Davis, this is Rick from Chicago National Bank. We've sent multiple notices. Your mortgage is 3 months past due." I laughed, thinking it was a scam. "I don't have a mortgage," I said. "I rent, always have." He paused. "Our records show a $769,000 mortgage under your name for a home at 382 Clark Street. Clark Street. My heart dropped. That was Madison's address. That night, I went to the bank and asked to see the paperwork. They handed me a thick folder with my name on every page, my social security number, my job history, and a signature that looked exactly like mine, but wasn't. I remember standing there in shock, stomach twisted in knots, staring at the house that legally, on paper, belonged to me. But I had never set foot in it. That was the night I realized. My sister didn't just cross a line, she incinerated it. I never saw myself as the kind of person who'd end up in the middle of a fraud investigation, let alone one involving my own family. But if I'm honest, looking back, the signs were always there, I just didn't want to see them. I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. My parents, Linda and Gary Davis, were solid, middle-class people. Dad was an accountant until he retired 2 years ago. Mom still teaches 3rd grade at the local elementary school, claiming she'll retire when kids stop being funny, which, according to her, is never. We were a close-knit family. Sunday dinners, birthday traditions, road trips to Lake Geneva. And then there was Madison, my little sister, 2 years younger, but always 10 steps ahead. Growing up, she was the star, the confident one. Student council president, cheer captain, prom queen. I was the quiet one in the background, bookish, awkward, the kid who tutored others in biology while she practiced her debate speeches, and yet I adored her. Even as adults, we stayed connected. Coffee every other week, family dinners twice a month. On the surface, we were tight. But underneath, our lives couldn't have been more different. Madison married Logan 5 years ago, tall, charming, always with the newest iPhone in hand. He worked in tech finance or startups or something vaguely impressive that involved buzzwords and venture capital. Madison ran a boutique marketing agency and always looked perfectly put together, even on casual days. They lived in a high-rise downtown for a while before buying that house in Lincoln Park, the one I apparently own according to the bank. When they first invited us for the housewarming, I remember walking through the place in awe. Open concept, marble countertops, custom lighting, the kind of place you see on HGTV and assume you'll never afford. "You like it?" Madison had asked, wine glass in hand, smile flawless. "You could have something like this too, Claire. You're smart. You just play it safe too much." I laughed it off, like I always did when she said things like that. It was Madison being Madison, ambitious, bold, living life like it was a Pinterest board. But sometimes her comments stung more than I let on. I never thought of my life as small, but next to hers it felt quiet. I worked long hours, saved carefully, used coupons. My idea of luxury was splurging on a second bottle of wine or buying a new pair of scrubs without waiting for a sale. Still, I was content. I had meaning in my work. I had my plants, my little balcony garden, my books. I had stability. What I didn't realize is that while I was building a modest life brick by brick, Madison was crafting a facade, glossy on the outside, hollow underneath. They always looked like they had it all. New cars, designer clothes, weekend getaways, but at what cost? The answer hit me like a freight train the moment I saw those loan documents, with my name, my credit, my identity, used to buy a $769,000 house. And the person behind it was the same sister I once built blanket forts with. The betrayal didn't just blindside me. It rewrote our entire history. The ride from the hospital to the bank was a blur. I kept playing the conversation over in my head. 769,000 Clark Street. Foreclosure, my name. I must have replayed it a dozen times before I even realized I'd parked. I walked into Chicago National Bank like a woman walking into her own nightmare. The branch manager, a middle-aged man named Mr. Ellison, met me in a glass-walled office with leather chairs that were too soft for how rigid I felt. "We have all your paperwork here, Ms. Davis," he said calmly, as if we were discussing a car lease and not the collapse of my entire reality. He slid a thick folder toward me. Inside, a full mortgage application. Pay stubs showing a $185,000 salary, a pre-approval letter. Bank statements, my full social, my work history. My signature, over and over, except I never signed any of it. My actual salary was just under $75,000. I'd never seen those pay stubs. The email on the application wasn't mine either. It was close. clairedavis.us@gmail.com instead of clairedavis1988@gmail.com. I nearly missed it. The attention to detail was terrifying. "They even forged my tax returns," I whispered, turning page after page. "Miss Ellison folded his hands. "Ms. Davis, I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't amateur work. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." He paused. "If this wasn't you, you need to go to the police." Immediately. I nodded, but my brain was still stuck on one thing. Clark Street, Madison's house, her dream house. No, my house, because legally that's what the records showed. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch, surrounded by folders, my laptop open to the Equifax dispute form, coffee gone cold on the table. First, I pulled my credit report. It felt like being punched. There wasn't just the mortgage. There was a home equity line of credit, $150,000. 3 credit cards I'd never opened. A personal loan for $45,000 from some sketchy fintech company in Nevada. My credit score had dropped from 741 to 532 in 6 months. I called Equifax, then TransUnion, then Experian. Each call lasted over an hour. Each agent sounded increasingly concerned the deeper we went. By 2 a.m., I had placed fraud alerts on all accounts, frozen my credit, and filed a preliminary identity theft report. But that didn't answer the question that haunted me. Who did this? By morning, I was too wired to go into work. I called in for the first time in years and told my supervisor I had a family emergency, which was technically true. Next, I called Stephanie, my best friend since nursing school. She worked at a high-end car dealership in River North, one of the few people who actually interacted with Madison socially. We met at a coffee shop 2 hours later. I showed her the mortgage document. "Holy shit," she breathed. "Claire, this is Madison's house." "I know," she leaned in. "You remember when she bought the Mercedes last month?" She came in with Logan. They tried to finance it under her name, but her credit was a disaster. Logan had to pay cash up front. I blinked. "She never told me that." Stephanie hesitated. I overheard them arguing in the parking lot. Logan said something like, "We can't keep doing this." The house was risky enough. I didn't know what he meant. I did now. The next step was painful but necessary. I hired a handwriting expert named Darla Blake. She ran a side business comparing signatures for court cases. I gave her a scan of the mortgage documents and several of my own signatures, from my driver's license, passport, old work contracts. 3 days later, she called. "They're forgeries," she said. "Sophisticated ones. Someone studied your signature carefully, probably practiced dozens of times. But they hesitated in places where you wouldn't. It's subtle but clear." "Would you testify to that?" "Yes," she said. "And you should lawyer up." Now. The deeper I dug, the more the pieces clicked into place like a horror puzzle. I found a secondary email, clairedavis.us@gmail.com, linked to credit card statements I never received. It was connected to online accounts for Best Buy, Target, and Neiman Marcus. Transactions: $600 Dyson, some $200 handbag, $4,800 patio furniture set. Everything shipped to 382 Clark Street. To Madison. I didn't want to believe it. Not really. I told myself it had to be Logan. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe he did it behind her back. But then I checked my own Gmail spam folder. That's where I found it. A welcome email from a bank I'd never heard of, sent 2 months ago, addressed to Claire Davis with my address misspelled as Clark Saint instead of Clark A. Forwarded from Madison's email. That was the moment the denial snapped. It wasn't just fraud. It wasn't just desperation, it was betrayal. Calculated. Cold. By someone who once braided my hair and helped me hide my first failing grade from our mom. She didn't just steal my credit. She weaponized my trust. It took me a full week to work up the courage to report it. Even with all the evidence, even knowing it was the only logical step, I hesitated. Because turning in a stranger is one thing. Turning in your sister? That's something else entirely. But then I imagined what would happen if I didn't. What if I let it go? Let her keep the house, the debt, the damage to my credit. What if she did it again, to someone else? Worse, what if she never intended to stop? So I walked into the Chicago Police Department's Financial Crimes Division on a cloudy Monday morning and filed a formal identity theft report. The detective who took my case was a woman named Detective Michelle Tran, mid-40s, steady voice, no-nonsense eyes. She listened to my story without interrupting, asked specific follow-up questions, and took notes like someone who'd heard versions of this before, but never quite like this. When I mentioned that the property belonged to my sister, she didn't even blink. "Family fraud is more common than you think," she said. "It's harder to prove, but emotionally, much worse." I gave her every document I had: credit reports, bank correspondence, signature analysis, forwarded emails, the fake email address. By the time I left the station, my hands were shaking, but something in my chest had settled. I had done the right thing, and now it was time to confront her. Coincidentally, or maybe cruelly, the confrontation happened at our bi-weekly family dinner. My mom texted that morning, "Can't wait to see my girls tonight. I'm making roast chicken and lemon pie." I almost canceled, almost made up an excuse, but the folder sat heavy in my bag, the police report, the documentation, the proof. I couldn't carry it any longer. That evening, I arrived at my parents' house in Evanston just before 6. Madison's white Lexus was already in the driveway. Inside, everything looked so normal. Dad uncorked wine. Mom flitted between the oven and the table. Madison laughed from the kitchen, telling some story to Logan about a brand client going viral on TikTok. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the house. It made me feel sick. "Claire!" Madison greeted me, arms open. "You look tired, sis. Work been crazy?" I stared at her, perfectly curled hair, polished nails, not a care in the world, and almost forgot how to speak. "Something like that," I said, brushing past her. We sat down to dinner. The conversation flowed around me. Updates about Mom's classroom, Dad's golf league, Logan's pitch to an angel investor. I barely touched my plate. Then Madison turned to me. "You're quiet tonight," she said, tone light but with that edge I'd known since childhood. "Everything okay?" I set down my fork. My heart thundered. "Actually, there's something I need to talk to all of you about." Madison blinked. "Sure. What's up?" I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. "I got a call last week from Chicago National Bank," I said, voice steady, "about a mortgage I supposedly took out for $769,000. The table went quiet. Dad looked up from his plate. "What? You bought a house?" "No," I said, "but someone did. In my name. Using my credit, forging my signature, and it turns out it's your house, Madison." Her face didn't move for a beat. Then she laughed, short, breathy, too high. "That's ridiculous. There must be some kind of mistake." I opened the folder. "Tell that to the signature analyst, or the IP logs from your old condo, or the fake email address set up under my name. Or the credit cards you opened and maxed out, also under my name." "Claire," Logan interrupted, "maybe we should talk about this privately." "No." I looked at him. "We're not sweeping this under the rug." My mom looked between us, confused. "Wait, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," I said slowly, "that Madison committed identity theft and mortgage fraud. I filed a police report. The bank is involved and there will be charges." Madison's expression finally cracked. Her face fell, eyes wide, jaw tight like a mask slipping. "You're seriously doing this to me?" she whispered. "To your own sister?" "No, Madison," I said. "You did this to me." "You have no idea what we were dealing with," she snapped. "We were drowning in debt. Logan's startup funding fell through, my clients dried up, the house, everything, we were going to lose it all." "So you stole from me?" I asked. "You didn't even ask. You didn't give me a choice." "I was going to fix it," she said. "Once we refinanced, once things stabilized." "They never were going to stabilize," I cut in. "You searched how to file bankruptcy in my name. You weren't trying to repay anything. You were trying to escape." Dad pushed back from the table, face pale. "Madison, is this true?" She didn't answer. Logan stood up. "Let's go," he said to her, jaw clenched. "This was a mistake." "No," my mother said quietly. "Sit. Answer your father." "Why?" Madison spat. "So I can be humiliated further?" "You humiliated yourself," I said. "I lost my credit score, my peace of mind, and nearly my nursing license if this had gotten worse. I had to freeze my life because of you." "I'm sorry," she exploded. "I made a mistake, okay? One mistake." "This isn't one mistake," I said. "This is months of deception, lies, and manipulation." My father stood. "I want both of you out of this house," he said to Madison and Logan. "Right now." Madison's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't beg. She stood, grabbed her purse, and left without another word. Logan followed. The front door slammed. And just like that, she was gone. The silence that followed Madison's departure felt louder than any shouting match could have. For a full minute, none of us said a word. My mother just stared at the empty doorway, eyes glistening. My father rubbed his temple, like trying to erase the entire evening from his mind. I stood, gathered my folder, and excused myself. "I need to go," I said quietly. "There's more to come. I just wanted you to hear it from me first." Neither of them tried to stop me. 3 days later, Detective Tron called. "We've submitted everything to the district attorney," she said. Given the amount of documentation and digital evidence, charges are moving forward. They'll likely issue arrest warrants within the week. It still felt surreal. That night, I walked through my apartment like I was seeing it for the first time. The pothos in the kitchen, the wine-stained paperback by the bed, the rent receipt pinned on the fridge, my life, modest, imperfect, but mine, and Madison had tried to take it all away. The arrests made the local news. Chicago couple charged in elaborate identity theft scheme, victim, woman's own sister. They didn't name me, but the article included enough detail that anyone close to us would figure it out. My phone blew up with texts from coworkers, college friends, even distant relatives we hadn't heard from in years. "I just saw the news. OMG, Claire, are you okay?" Was that really Madison? I ignored most of them because no one, not even the most well-meaning, really understood what it felt like to be betrayed so personally, so intimately. Madison and Logan were released on bail, but their assets were frozen. The house was seized by the bank and entered pre-foreclosure. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that my sister had stolen my identity, or that she'd done it without even a hint of hesitation. The police found browser history on her laptop searching how to declare bankruptcy in someone else's name, is family identity theft prosecuted, fake pay stubs generator. She hadn't panicked, she had planned. My parents were complicated. At first they were supportive, at least in their words. "You did the right thing," my dad told me one night over the phone. But then came the guilt. "She's still your sister," my mom whispered. "What will happen to her now? What about the kids they wanted to have?" I had no answer. Because what had she thought would happen to me? I could have lost my job, my apartment, my future. At one point, Mom asked if I'd consider asking the DA for leniency. I said no, and it broke something between us. Meanwhile, I was fighting a legal war of my own. The mortgage lender demanded more documentation to prove I hadn't authorized the loan. The credit card companies asked for police reports, notarized affidavits, even voice samples. One bank said they needed more compelling proof. It took 6 months, 4 lawyers, and over 30 phone calls just to remove one fraudulent credit line. Every time I thought I was done, a new bill arrived, a new denial, a new reminder that my sister hadn't just betrayed me, she'd left me with a minefield to navigate alone. Still, I kept going. I took every Friday off for 6 weeks to meet with my financial counselor. I joined an online support group for identity theft survivors. I met people who'd been ruined by spouses, in-laws, even their own children, and slowly I realized I wasn't alone, but I was one of the lucky ones. I still had my job, my license, my sanity mostly intact. And eventually, I got a letter from the bank. "Your mortgage account has been closed and deemed fraudulent. You are no longer held liable." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I cried. Not from sadness, but from sheer, exhausted relief. 9 months after the confrontation, Madison took a plea deal, 18 months in prison plus restitution and 5 years probation. Logan got 12 months. In court, she read a statement. "I betrayed the person who trusted me most. What I did was selfish, desperate, and unforgivable. Claire, I will carry the weight of this for the rest of my life." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because forgiveness, that's not something you say in a courtroom. It's something you earn over years, if ever. I moved, not far, just a few neighborhoods over, but far enough that I no longer walked past the same coffee shop we used to meet at, far enough that I no longer saw Clark Street on my commute. I bought a tiny bungalow in Albany Park with my own name on the deed. I painted the front door sage green, I planted tomatoes in the backyard, I started over. One evening, nearly a year after it all began, I got a letter, handwritten. It was from Madison. Inside, no excuses, no begging, just 5 words. "You were right. I'm sorry. I folded it, put it in a drawer, and left it there. Maybe forever. I still don't know if I'll ever fully trust again. I second-guess emails, I check my credit weekly, I lock my mailbox. I sleep with two-factor authentication enabled on everything, but I'm healing, not quickly. Not easily, but steadily. And I've learned something I never thought I'd have to learn. That family can hurt you worse than any stranger. That boundaries are love, especially with people you love. That protecting yourself is not betrayal, it's survival. I used to believe that betrayal was something that happened to other people. People in novels, headlines, courtroom dramas, not to me, not from my own sister. But life doesn't ask if you're ready for the lesson. It hands it to you, cold, sudden, and irreversible. It's been over a year now since that first phone call that changed everything. The mortgage, the fraud, the unraveling of my family. Sometimes it still feels unreal, and sometimes, when I check my credit report and see my name clean again, it feels like I fought through fire and made it out the other side. But not unscathed. I've changed, in ways I didn't expect. I used to be the person who always gave others the benefit of the doubt, who assumed good intentions, who trusted, maybe too easily. Now I still believe in kindness, but I believe in boundaries more. I believe that love doesn't mean blind loyalty, that family doesn't mean immunity, that forgiveness is not a shortcut, it's a mountain, and no one gets to the top for free. I haven't forgiven Madison yet. Maybe I never will. Maybe the act of protecting myself was the closest thing to love I could offer her in the end, because saying no can be an act of self-respect. And self-respect is not selfish, it's essential. There are still hard days. The holidays are quieter. Our family group text feels fractured. My mom still hopes for reconciliation. My dad doesn't talk about it at all. Sometimes I miss the sister I thought I had, but then I remember she made a choice. And so did I. I chose to stand up for myself. I chose to reclaim my name, my future, my peace. I chose to break a cycle of silence. And if you're listening to this, maybe you've had to make hard choices too. Maybe someone you trusted betrayed you. Maybe you're carrying a weight that isn't yours to carry. Let me say this clearly. You are not wrong for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for drawing a line. You are not weak for grieving someone who's still alive, but no longer safe. You're just human and healing. I made this video not to relive the pain, but to share the truth, because stories like mine aren't rare, they're just rarely told. And maybe, if someone out there is sitting in a mess they didn't make, wondering if speaking up will ruin everything, maybe this gives you the strength to say, I deserve better. I know now that I do. And so do you. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, share it, comment, subscribe. You never know who might need to hear it, because betrayal breaks, but truth rebuilds.